All right. Hello, Caroline. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic.
On the
Um,
on the on the roll here.
so, for those who don't know Caroline, she's been around the community for quite some time. She
Really
is
long.
the really long time. Yep. I was looking at your LinkedIn and Expression Engine, PHP developer, all around coder, fine artist, and now principal and founder of Petroglyph Creative. Definitely give a shout out to our speakers, guys. It's not
That's good.
easy to get on here and do all the technical stuff and all that. So all of our speakers are volunteers again, and we appreciate them being willing to take the time to do this. Um, so Expression Engine is a WordPress alternative. We've said it at last conference. We're never afraid to say other CMS's name. So Expression Engine, I think, fills a very specific niche and has a lot of power behind it when we use it and set it up correctly. And so I don't think anything else to say, Caroline. You ready to go?
Right. Yeah, and I'm
All
hoping
right.
to sort of build on that today. WordPress is a huge CMS as far as market share goes, and I think we have a really direct line to some of the work to help those folks if we decide to pursue it. So
Awesome.
I'll take it away now if you're
All
ready.
right. Yep, I'm going to head on out of here. Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Andy. So Andy introduced me, but I'm Caroline Blaker, and if we haven't met, I'm the founder and principal of Petroglyph Creative. This is Expression Engine as a WordPress alternative. And I'm hoping to use like this 20 minutes today to show you why I think Expression Engine makes for a really strong WordPress alternative and what that means for us. It isn't a 5 ways talk or like a magic thinking talk. It's also not a coding talk. It's not how to emulate WordPress and Expression Engine necessarily, but that would make a good follow-up for this one. We're not going to overanalyze statistics or bend a narrative past the point of recognition to support some kind of random point. We're not even going to say anything bad about WordPress, none of that. What I really want to do is show you a set of facts that I've harvested just from Moz and to tell you about what I think it could mean for us. Thanks for being here, and thanks to the EECA for gathering us all together again and for having me speak. At Petroglyph Creative, you can hire us to do websites in Expression Engine and Craft CMS, content strategy, writing, and social media. We used to work in WordPress, but we dropped support for it after Expression Engine went open source. We still have 1 or 2 WordPress websites kicking around, but mostly focused on clients who are looking for support in organic search ranking and authority. And unless there's a strict blog lock on that project, or even in some of those cases, we just rather use Expression Engine. It gives us the flexibility to go in and do the strategic work, gives us full access to templates, no need for PHP to get the work done. And no need to compromise here, especially with highly specialized add-ons that can conflict with one another, throw your project off that way, or only go to like sort of 85% of what's required. With Expression Engine, and especially with it being open source, we build the websites people want from the ground up and avoid weekly urgencies, software updates, hacks. It keeps us on track, and it helps the client move ahead with their goals. What we know about Expression Engine, that it can handle custom features, security and optimization more gracefully than many other PHP CMSs, isn't new to most people here. However, it's not commonly known outside of this community that people paid to use it because it was so complete once upon a time in an internet where free software was all the rage. That it inspired, in fact, new different CMSs to be built. That Expression Engine got its roots in high-powered agency builds, that you can, in fact, set it up just like WordPress and then keep adding your features. That it continues to be surrounded by an intelligent, empathetic community that is doing the work to keep it running. The people involved are tireless, and many have a sense of stewardship and contribution to both the software and the community at large. Hats off to you. My point is, what we know about Expression Engine is extremely compelling for us. And yet, as firmly as we are rooted here, as much effort as we put in, we've maybe changed the world perhaps a little less than we'd like to. What does our community need to know about WordPress? Most of us have been there, but whether or not we still dip in, the whole developer-author confluence that WordPress really championed from the early aughts is as strong and welcoming as ever today. There are exceptions to this, but if you are a curious person with a computer, you generally are within a very short reach of the resources you need to start making a WordPress website. and initiate yourself into those very first steps of identifying as a web developer. This is what I was before I met ExpressionEngine. Anybody else? I got my first EE job in 2008, and I had been working in WordPress previously. So why is it so easy to become a WordPress developer? Why is it so fun? The setup is well documented and simple, approachable. You can Google the parts you don't know or get stuck at. You can ask your friend who's worked with it. The hosted versions involve zero setup. I mean, there's no denying that the strength of their onboarding and retention is uncomparable. WordPress was born a blogging software in a developing internet where independent blogs were all the rage. And they took this all the way to, like, what's that say? Like almost 2/3 of all content management websites and 41% of all of the websites in the world. The author experience comes at the ready with the bells and whistles and the crud. And once you're there, you can do pretty much anything, even shop for new features from within the app. It's easy to see that when you arrive at this accomplishment of having thrown this whole thing onto a server, you might think it's just the greatest thing. And the choices about 40% of the internet appear to support that conviction. So if a website never gets to the point where the software becomes cumbersome to manage, then there may be no necessary reason to move it. Not all websites are going to have to manage heavy traffic or support sales or need 15 channels. However, in this large and overall group with so much in common with us, it does beg the question of how many folks at a time are on the outs with it. Not suggesting, of course, that anyone has a specific reason to leave, but it's worth noticing, I think, that ExpressionEngine solves a certain category of problems, mainly the ones that come around highly successful WordPress websites. Even the tiny percentage of folks from this giant overall population segment trying to look for a WordPress alternative, which they are, they're not going to find ExpressionEngine. Instead, they're just going to get this. Listicles, hosted services. There's like a high roller in the featured snippet trying to tell us where to look. I mean, these are all WordPress alternatives. You can take a website in pretty much any direction from the suggestions on this page, but ExpressionEngine is missing. And as it is a unique, scalable, simple, secure, and stable alternative that can take your WordPress website as it is, it belongs on this page. ExpressionEngine can offer these websites the things that they liked about WordPress, but with a new lease on a much larger bounding box. They're both PHP and MySQL, designed differently for different outcomes, but they have quite a bit in common. For example, ExpressionEngine and WordPress have been around a really long time. Both platforms are super simple and set up with very similar installation processes. There's more setup with ExpressionEngine to get to where WordPress is at that point, but once you're there, you're more secure and more performance. Not to mention ready to keep kicking butt in whatever direction it's already taken you. So I hear, so what? We've known about our similarity to WordPress for a really long time. It's never really been a selling point. Why would this be a thing now? That's an excellent question. If we can equate overall awareness of ExpressionEngine as a WordPress alternative as helpful, or a measurable increase in search results as helpful, then this is what we got. There are at least 1,300 searches for WordPress alternatives, plural and singular, a month. This number quickly escalates when we look at related searches that appear to be looking for something other than what's at the default baseline Google SERP page. The number of people looking for WordPress alternatives increases to something approaching 3 times that original figure for WordPress alternatives. I don't know about you, but this says to me that they need more than what they're getting on that SERP page that we saw. Furthermore, with these highly trafficked alternative keywords, alternative to WordPress alternative, that is, there's a possible argument here that there could be a thirst for a solution that isn't easily reaching searches. No matter who's looking, I believe it is safe to extrapolate that on a monthly basis, some percentage of more than 3,200 searches is actively seeking a result that's difficult to find. People may be doing work here around gathering and weighing options. These folks, they're not looking for Wix or Squarespace or Shopify, because if they were, they would have gotten to that point and been happy with their result. Maybe they want something self-hosted, but have heard of the 2 or 3 options at the top of those lists, along with their historical bug lists, And maybe it's the kind of stuff that got them into the search in the first place. The extrapolated stories this tells can go a few different directions. Maybe they're after increased security. To take this a step further, looks like I didn't advance once as well. This was a little bit of the slide. I don't know if you guys can see it, even what we've been seeing already, but 32,220 just added up on this slide. And there are other keywords here that apply. These are just the ones that neatly sort of looked like they weren't looking for the active Google search one. There's all kinds of ways people are looking for this. These are just the ones I chose to illustrate. So to take this just a step further, the largest keyword for ExpressionEngine is the word ExpressionEngine. And it posts at 611. The searches looking for ExpressionEngine by name are outnumbered by the collective open-ended WordPress alternative keywords given, 5 to 1, 5 to 1. Without being a few steps ahead, having explicitly made effort to meet WordPress alternative seekers with information about migration to ExpressionEngine, it's impossible to measure exactly what the volume of interest is here for us. But we don't need a firm handle on an exact figure to determine if it's worth pursuing. More closely aligned with what we know, we can come up with a value of how big the potential number of searches would have to be in order to make a difference for us. Similarly, we can look at a minimum percentage of WordPress alternative searches that could tip the scales. Let me see if I got that. Okay. It's all well and good to figure out that a significant amount of something that you want is in a treasure chest buried in the Rockies. And it's an entirely another thing to think that you could reasonably reach it without a plan. Certainly people did and do try to do this, but this keyword is not only heavily trafficked, but also minded heavily by numbers marketers and high roller opinions. What's evident by all of that activity is that some attention to this keyword and the group of folks who actively pursue it is paying off for a lot of these companies. Companies behind systems that aren't even necessarily as well qualified to do the work as ours. If we can see ourselves at the best choice for folks leaving WordPress, for us, the problems we can solve and pave the way for them, the growth potential for ExpressionEngine could be extraordinary. So where do we start? The first group you're going to want to connect with are the potential clients for whom ExpressionEngine would provide the greatest relief. This is our low-hanging fruit. It's the most difficult aspect is at the beginning when the messaging is developing. Slowly, surely, though, it'll be easier to reach people after a critical mass of effort has been exerted in this direction by us and our colleagues. I've jotted down some quick pointers here, but the strategy is pretty much alignment of purpose with these folks, which shouldn't be overbearing to communicate or explain. You want what they want out of their website, and you can give it to them. What's important here is that people interested in doing this work create the content for these folks and cater directly to them. We will compete with and against each other, but also sort of in concert with one another to create enough noise that it becomes possible for those looking for us to notice. And as we've already seen, we need to get noticed first. Another group we haven't talked about who may be looking for us are the developers for who, whatever reason, need something that handles more. It may be like our stories. Like for instance, they may not be entirely impressed with the bug list residing on the open source giants and be at some kind of crossroads with WordPress. It can't be easy to know where to go. If you're in this nexus, like, you know, half the websites in the world, and as soon as you realize that it's not for you or this project, the consensus that you're used to being able to rely on just falls away to, you know, pretty much advertising and recycled information. This may be one of those instances where we have to approach these folks with content like ways to create WordPress and ExpressionEngine. You could post speed tests along the side, could be fun. Or else, if enough of the client group notices us, these folks are bound to follow the clients to the work. Why would we want to attract developers? I know at least some of you, us, are struggling to find junior people. If these folks want to learn ExpressionEngine, but they already know WordPress, they're where I was in 2008. You can hire these people just as they are if you're willing to do a little bit of mentoring, and sometimes, at least in my case, even if you're not. You might even end up with a specialty of WordPress to ExpressionEngine conversions. We're near the end. So bringing this all back around, in short, what I'm trying to say is ExpressionEngine is possibly the best choice for some percentage of the keyword research seeking out WordPress alternatives. We know this because we can emulate WordPress websites and give them more running space, and yet we are difficult to locate in that default keyword research, and we haven't directly started telling them about us. If we started talking this up, describing processes, comparing both systems, naming problems we can solve, we are going to attract the people looking to solve those problems. How many? It doesn't matter. It's likely to be a fire hose before the end. Back to how to do this, it's definitely a teamwork thing, years possibly of teamwork. We will know when it's working, when it becomes a consensus among many of us, some combination of community recognition, while each of us sort of assumes the piece of responsibility that is right for us. More than having a ton of strength at any one point in time, like any good website strategy, it needs to be executable as evenly as possible over a long period of time. What we can achieve over time is sort of de-abstraction of the distance between ExpressionEngine and WordPress by catering content offerings, tutorials, services, and even add-ons directly to the collective of folks actively looking to gain the benefits of moving to ExpressionEngine. And I do think it's possible that this could take some time. But for those of us who are long hauling it through this whole thing and wondering where to make the next splash, this may be the most significant opportunity for us that the data has to detect. And that's pretty much it. Thank you. Here's some more information about me. If you like this talk, you might like my work. We've pivoted to content strategy, and this is one such example of the strategies we develop. If you think I can help you or just have questions about content strategy or ExpressionEngine, I'd be delighted to answer them. There's gonna be Q&A here, but you can also catch me on EE Slack and on Twitter. Please leave feedback, especially if you like the talk. My experience is the people that don't like the talks don't really need to be encouraged to leave feedback, but everyone else needs the nudge. If you like the talk, really like to hear about it. Thanks again.
Awesome. And of course, my camera was completely messed up there. All right. Thank you, Caroline, for that.
Thank you.
Great talk, as always. And of course, a great talk. I know that the reality, even though us on the team like to think that ExpressionEngine is the only CMS in the world and the greatest there ever was, I know there are a lot of people out there looking for WordPress and they're looking for alternatives for WordPress, and we hope that they come to ExpressionEngine and that we provide a pathway for that. And again, Caroline, share some feedback with our team as well. If there's things that you'd like for us to do on our side,
I'd be delighted to be invited at any point to talk with you guys about this stuff. Yeah. I think there's a lot of branching. I mean, it was only a 20-minute talk, and God, if I had to talk about this for 40 minutes, even I'd get bored. But like there's definitely different facets. Like there's the, what can we do as developers? How can the EECA lead the charge? How can ExpressionEngine itself tweak is a bad word, but you know what I mean, like just right. Sort of change a tiny bit to sound more, to just for all of this to sort of shape up. I mean, it's going to be a giant amount of people that show up if we just do a little bit of work, but over a long period of time. For sure. And that's what I think we were talking about in that last talk with Tom and I, where he said, it's going to take a year or so, if not more, for the community to really grow to what it used to be. And then we've got to get the new people on board. We've got to get the agencies on board. We've got to get the developers on board, like you just said. And then that content's going to grow over time, and it's going to be out there more. So when people search, they're going to find ExpressionEngine more out there in the wild. And developers definitely, if you have questions about, diving more into ExpressionEngine as far as add-on development, that kind of stuff, definitely reach out to us on the team or some of the other people that have been around here for a while. I know add-ons. I think I've given Doug like a year's worth of work, actually. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to him unless he wants to talk to me. He's probably mad at this point. There's wealth to share there. Yeah. But Mike brings up a point here about one sticking point for us sometimes is the client's ability to find and install plugins themselves in WordPress. They want us to do this, even though we all know it could be junky and disastrous. But
add-ons they have their positives and negatives, there's pros and cons, right? That, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want a site with a lot of add-ons. But as we bring more developers into ExpressionEngine, and we have developers that are sticking with their add-ons and their products, and hopefully us as a team are doing everything we can to support that and make that an easier process for them. That's what really grows, I think, the product too, is having those add-ons that do great things. And it might take a couple of third-party add-ons, but that's providing an ecosystem and for those developers. But they've got to start somewhere. We've got to bring them into the community. We've got to teach them. We've got to train them. And then even just in your agency, which I think is more specific to what you were talking about there, is teaching them to work with ExpressionEngine even if they've never done that before.
And it's, anybody that really knows WordPress, it's going to be a downgrade of effort. As soon as they sort of get adjusted to the lay of the land with ExpressionEngine, it's like, all I have to do is put an EXP tag to do this. I don't have to look up PHP stuff. There's all of the, all the possible parameters are on one single page and they're navigable and I can do this. Like, it builds confidence. And then there's all the benefits. But I think the key is really to approach the clients first, or to approach the problem-centric folks first, the folks that are having headaches about WordPress and not knowing where to go, because it's pretty much a dead end marketing-wise. Once you leave WordPress, it's like, what you have Wix, you have Squarespace. It's like, that's downgrading for some folks. That's not solving problems. Right. That's taking away flexibility. That's boxing the site in and sort of paying someone to make the problems go away and sort of wondering why you started this in the first place. But we need to get out there and show them that, like, we have this sort of WordPress plus in along their terms. Of course, we're not going to call it that, but we need to cater directly to them and say, this is what you need after WordPress. We know about WordPress and we can migrate from WordPress. Your site can exist in ExpressionEngine exactly as it is in WordPress, but you will have none of those, none of the issues that sort of push the envelope of your software that really are scary. Okay, you've got a good sale and like 10 people want your stuff, the site goes down. Like, that's horrible.
Yep. And I was one of those developers at my previous agency. I came in as a backend developer to build applications, and they ended up needing some help on the front end. And they said, have you ever heard of ExpressionEngine? I said, no. And I started asking them all these WordPress questions, because as a freelance developer, I had done WordPress sites and add-ons and stuff. And I started asking them about like the whole, I don't know if you guys have seen like the WordPress template hierarchy and all that kind of stuff, where you try to figure out what template's rendering where. And they were like, no, it's not like that. You just do X, Y, Z.
Do the thing.
It was actually, it was so much easier, but harder to make that transition to like, oh, I can forget all that stuff. I don't have to.
And that's a really important point, is that
I do.
WordPress developers are not going to have the faith and like certitude to like sort of push forward and do this on their own. We have to sort of invite them on and say, this is all that you have to do. But look, I was able to create this WordPress site in ExpressionEngine in about 3 hours. Here are the steps. I use these add-ons. By the way, this is my new add-on, and it assigns categories just like WordPress does. This is my tagging add-on, and it assigns tags just like WordPress does. You can get the WordPress editor now in ExpressionEngine. Look, we can set it up just like WordPress. Getting them into ExpressionEngine is going to be, might take those kinds of things. And once they're in the ecosystem, of course, they'll get the options. They'll get the looking around, and this is how we grow.
Right. All right, so lots of good stuff in the chat here. Travis mentions Hop used to have a top EE sites list annually. Maybe they should do that again. Yes, let's do that. And really, that's the kind of stuff that it takes. Again, it takes a community. The community needs to be out there producing content, whether it's on the forums, whether it's submitting ExpressionEngine University articles. We're always happy to have people write for ExpressionEngine University. Even if you just have a concept and you need some help getting started, let me know, and we can help you write that article, or send us some bullet points and we'll fill in snippets or whatever, to kind of help that process along. Agatha mentioned several times here about how just the perception of WordPress being headache-free. And again, if you have feedback on how we can make ExpressionEngine more headache-free, one of the questions in the last talk was about the site setups, and I talked about via migrations, just being able to bring an entire site in there, almost like some of the themes in WordPress. That's coming down the road, and we want to do stuff to make ExpressionEngine headache-free and easier to use. like just like upgrades now that you can go from 2 to 6 without major issues or anything like that. So.